Hey man, it's time to grow up. Who wants to hear that? Yeah, let's go. Yeah, one of the last things any adult wants to hear is grow up. In fact, I don't think it's anything that anybody wants to hear is to grow up, but we need to sometimes. A lot of times. In fact, I noticed recently more and more this phrase adulting. And it's a phrase that like 20-somethings will use with dealing with the harsh reality of being a grown-up and having to do adult things like pay bills and go to work and have responsibility and say goodbye to a carefree life. Now, here's the thing. Like, there's a misunderstanding in that, and I think it's almost like I'm trading a life of joy and contentment and fun and all of that for a life of slavery and servitude and just absolute misery. It doesn't have to be that way if we're serving the Lord. Do you see the difference? One serves me, one serves, I guess, a job or something else. Do you see? Neither of them are good. You know, and that's not what we're talking about when we talk about growing up and being mature. Here's what Paul said in Ephesians 4, verse 15. He gives us, I think, a better way. He says, rather, and again, he's talking about growing, to mature manhood, right? Having to the measure of the stature of the fullness of Christ. He talks about, and he does that so that we're not just thrown here and there by every little wind of doctrine and teaching, where somebody says, oh no, it's not this, it's this, and we get caught up in all these things instead of on the solid ground of salvation in Jesus alone. We're going to be secure in that. We're going to be grown up and mature in that. And no, it's not about that. It's about what Jesus has done for me. And so he says in verse 15, he says, rather, instead of being tossed all around, he says, rather, speaking the truth in love, we are to grow up in every way into Him who is the head, into Christ. And then he talks about how, through Christ, the whole body, like the church, is put together. But He is the head. It's Jesus. He's the central everything to everything. Your head has your mind, and it really dictates your breathing, your seeing, your hearing, your taste, all of that, everything, your ability to move, your muscles, all comes from up here. And Jesus is that central everything for us, the church, and as God's people. And we got to remember that. And that's probably the most important part of this. No, He's the one. We say, oh, He's the brains of the operation. He is not just the brains, but the everything for us. And we're to grow up in every way into Him. So that's the goal, who He is. When we look at this discipleship thing, when you look at parenting, how do you want your kids to grow up? I want them to be like Jesus. There was a great song. I'll try to remember I can't remember the artist's name. I'll search it and try to put it in the description here. He says, I want to be mistaken for Jesus was the whole idea of the song. And I thought, well, that's really cool. What a thing that kind of keys on this passage. So instead of being wishy-washy on everything and here and there and putting your finger up and seeing which way the wind is blowing and which way you're gonna, so is it more of a liberal direction or more of a conservative direction? No, he's like, none of that. We're gonna look to Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith. We're gonna look to Him who bled and died for us, who loves us sacrificially, gave His life for us, rose triumphantly for us. And we're gonna say, that's wisdom, that's courage. Living your life that way is the only way to live, so that everything, and I think it's what it means to grow up into Him, is like where I just trust Him and trust Him and I trust Him and I take my cues from Him. But I do all that, but the biggest thing is I'm just knowing and understanding in deeper and more kind of complete ways what He's done for me and how much He loves me and how He's going to just deal with all those times where I want to include my own merit into that. my own goodness into that, and when all that creeps in, all that pride, that's what it means. Like it's a doing away of those things, because I want to grow up. I want to get mature, and that's the point. And that's what discipleship is. It's exactly the same as parenting. And we gotta ask ourselves, in our churches, in our families, in our groups, among us, are we thinking that way at all? I was just at a conference a couple weeks ago, and that's one of the things we talked about. And a lot of people fought that idea of maturing, even though it's in here all the time. God wants us to grow in our faith, to develop, not just intellectually, but spiritually, and to know who He is, and to live that way, and to pass that on to others. Because that's the ultimate immaturity, is when I know what God has done, and I have that clear picture, clear enough that I can teach someone else, hopefully my kids, and teach them in such a way that they get it, and that they take that on themselves, and they grow up, and then they become parents, and then they bring the faith to their kids, and they raise their kids, not just in the church, but in the faith, so that they grow up to be like into Jesus, who is the head of all things. Man, that's awesome. That's the plan that God has for us. So let's do that. Let's speak that truth. Speak it in love. In love. A love that puts others first. A love that's not about, trying to win the conversation. That's not what the truth is about. The truth sets us free. I want that person to be free. Not to feel like they're less than me. Not to feel like they just got schooled by me. That's not love. No, but it's saying, I want to always, and this is our prayer today as we finish out this this passage, that I would have that as my motive. The growth and maturity and the faith of others, that it would just continue to grow. All right? So, to be praying today. We'll talk to you tomorrow as we get back at another follow through. We'll see you then.